Well, let's take a look at another mover this morning. Swedish automaker Volvo tumbling to a record low. Now, this comes after its majority shareholder, Chinese-owned Geely Holdings, sold just over 3% of its stake in the company. Geely saying that the move will improve trading liquidity for investors and allows a wider base of share and still leaves Geely with a 78% holding within Volvo. Now, this took the street by a bit of a surprise here, just given the depressed levels that Volvo has been trading at. The timing of this sale certainly interesting, but they're doing what they can to raise some liquidity, better position Volvo, what they see at least for the future. I'm a bit surprised that this stock has not performed a little bit better, and certainly at least over the last several months. Solid. When you talk about the fact that it's not exactly,
I knew you were going to go
here. It shouldn't be an underperformer. Why?
Well, every single one of our friends from high school has a Volvo now, so
It is a family car. It is.
Well, isn't that what it's? So Tesla, their whole thing is, how do we tout safer than a Volvo, faster than a Porsche?
Exactly.
Was their entire thing. So the safety standards, they run higher.
I think ultimately for any automaker right now, inclusive of Tesla, there's a challenge around what the story that you've been telling yourselves and investors on what the world's going to look like in 2030. Volvo is among the dozens of international car makers talking about we're not going to make internal, we're not going to make combustible engines by the end of this decade. Well, we're 6 weeks away from 2024. So in 6 years, we're not going to make the cars that are still a majority of our sales. And look, the mechanics of this, it doesn't matter what the company is. When your majority shareholder comes out and says, we're going to sell 100 million shares, even if everyone says it's fine, and even if it is indeed fine, Volvo, they're not going to buy it back. But, in theory, they could come, they could buy back the stake themselves. It's just not the kind of thing that investors are going to be super excited about. There's a mechanical math thing around, there's more liquidity, therefore the stocks that are currently trading, the shares that are currently outstanding are thus, worth less.
So then I think that also then leads to, is this a bit of an overreaction maybe on the street part? Obviously,
I'm
just
sure
given
people
the fact.
would tell you that. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. That was my argument.
But I do think though that for automakers right now, it's a very challenging time to articulate your strategy. Because the strategy that most automakers have articulated is that very simple, we're going to spend all this money, don't worry, in the future everyone's going to have an electric vehicle, that's the reason why we're spending all this capital now, It's going to be fine, and it's just not totally clear, and we see the signs from the GMs and the Ford on their read on the US market around the demand for their next gen EVs. It's just not clear that the timeline that has been agreed to, which again, generally is 2030, to me, it's not clear that's going to come through.
At a time where we know that there's an amazing and remarkable pricing war that's ensued in the EV landscape, and Volvo, who just posted its 2024 kind of prices, MSRP, down the line for all of its models, the average is coming in at about $57,000 sticker. So we'll see what negotiations on lots look like, and of course in the dealer mechanisms, how much that can vary. But at the end of the day, it's still going to be a larger question of where those prices might still need to come down, even if you are still selling an internal combustion engine, where people are going to say, okay, now I weigh the options of, do I feel comfortable getting an EV and ensuring that I can have the chargeability, or do I just stay with this ICE Volvo that I know is going to have a high safety standard because everybody else in my neighborhood has it, and at the end of the day, feel comfortable, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it also just ties to the fact that profitability off of these EV vehicles, right? When it comes to at least their EV SUV, the EX30, there's questions about what exactly those margins are going to look like.
It's just about getting them into the ecosystem at this point.